Memories are timeless treasures of the heart. Join us as we share weekly obituaries in memoriam reflections and loving tributes. We hope you find solace in the memories shared. In loving memory. Marcia Veronica Adams, J.P. Richard Anthony Birch. Maureen Andrea Campbell. Thelma Ophelia Jewsbury. Simeon Adolphus Franklin. Kevin E. Hoyt, also known as Kevy. Esther Maylene John. Gwendolyn Wilhelmina Jordan. Zareen Shanna McFarlane. Adrian Sinclair Williams, BSc. Joan Diana Morita Worrell. Marcia Veronica Adams, J.P., of 305 Crystal Crescent, Kingsland, Christchurch, retired worker of Sanitation Service Authority, active member of the BLP Christchurch East Central, devoted member of Divine Visitation Ministries and St. Christopher Nazarene Church, daughter of the late Iva Cummins and Eric Bailey, wife of Edward Adams of Guardsman, mother of Corrine, Tammy, and the late Dario Cummins, stepmother of Janelle Brewster, grandmother of Tamika, Sharisa, and Kaylee Cummins, adopted grandmother of Collis Blades, sister of Saitel, Enid, Carlo, Ethine, Eric, and the late Vita Cummins, niece of Rose Maskell, aunt of Gail, Antoinette, Tracia, Nicole, Convonda, Phyllis, Sandra, and many others. Great aunt and cousin of many. Sister-in-law of Charles, Frank, Kenrick, and the late Jean Adams. Mother-in-law of Edwin Skeet. Special friend of Sonia, Hazel, Corrine, Barbara, Paulette, Marlise, Mrs. Payne, and many others from all walks of life. Relative of the Cummins, Maskell, and Bailey families. The funeral of the late Marcia Veronica Adams, J.P., leaves Belmont Funeral Home, Belmont Road, on Friday, June 23, 2023, for Collymore Rock Nazarene Church, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 1 p.m. for the service. The funeral will then proceed to the Christchurch Cemetery for the interment. The service and burial may be viewed via live stream at www.belmontfuneralhome.live/Marcia Adams. Richard Anthony Birch. Sunrise, January 2nd, 1964. Sunset, June 8th, 2023. Late of Le Haven, 2nd Avenue Grisettes, St. Michael, former worker of the Barbados Port Inc., son of the late Kenneth and Euleen Birch, formerly of England, grandson of the late Frank George Birch, father of the late Jadon Amari Watson, brother of Ian Birch, Diana Bell and Angela Jones, and the late Tyrone Birch, uncle of Lloyd, Katrina, Kerry, and Shaquila Birch, Jacqueline and Rebecca Jones, brother-in-law of Olivia and Sandra Birch, Steve Bell, Theodore T.J. Jones, relative of the Birch and Jackman families, and many others, too numerous to mention. Friend of Sean Gittins and Kayanne Maynard, Alicia Watson, and many more. The funeral of the late Richard Anthony Birch leaves Belmont Funeral Home on Thursday, June 22nd, 2023, for James Street Methodist Church, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 10 a.m. for the service. The funeral will then proceed to Westbury Cemetery for the interment. The service and burial may be viewed via live stream at www.belmontfuneralhome.live/Richard Birch. Maureen Andrea Campbell, aged 59, affectionately known as Momo, of Brathwaite Gap, Sion Hill, St. James, former employee of the Ministry of Agriculture Soil Conservation Unit, loving daughter of Winifred Eugene and the late Keith Campbell, beloved mother of the late Fabian Campbell, cherished grandmother of Shem Campbell, sister of Walter Griffith, Linda Ellis, Clennell Cadogan, the late Denise Campbell, Grace Harris, and Ricky Wilson, aunt of Faith Campbell, Janelle Haynes Boyce, Jason Haynes, Noel Harris, Shariah and Damian Griffith, and Simone Ellis, niece of Elmont and Annette Cumberbatch, Ellison Corbin, the late Arundel Broom and Eleanor Corbin, relative of the Campbell, Cumberbatch, Headley, and Rochester families. Barbados Foursquare Church, 4th Avenue, Rockdundo, St. James, where relatives and friends are asked to meet for the service of Thanksgiving at 2 p.m. Tributes commence at 1:30 p.m. The cortege will then proceed to Mount Pleasant Memorial Gardens, Pleasant Hall, St. Peter, for the interment. Live streaming of the service and interment may be viewed via elizabethfuneralservices.live/Maureen Campbell. Thelma Ophelia Dewsbury, aged 93, of Sheldon Lodge, Mylords Hill, St. Michael, entered into rest on June 5, 2023. Widow of Frederick Garcia Gary Dewsbury, former CEO of Barbados Radiodiffusion Service Limited, known now as Starcom Network Inc., mother of Wayne Dewsbury, retired teacher, David Dewsbury, retired banker, and Cheryl Broom Webster, retired banker. Grandmother of Ronaldo Dewsbury of Canada, Tanisha Clark, pharmacist, Gary Broom Webster of Jose and Jose, Tyrell Dewsbury of New York, and Derek Dewsbury of the CDB. Great-grandmother of Crystal, Jade, and Amber Clark, Kiana and Aidan Broom Webster, mother-in-law of Karen Dewsbury and the late Robert Broom Webster, sister of the late Gwen Scott, Howard, George, and Marston Seeley, aunt of Victor and Selwyn Scott and the late Betty Farfan, cousin of Marguerite Walcott, Angela Mason of the USA, Janice and Cecilia Edwards, Pat Eastmond, the late Trevor Edwards, Judy Thomas, and Daisy Cumberbatch. Relative of the Edwards, Seeley, Brown, Tudor, and Hope families. A very close friend of Ermy Springer, Pat Hudson, Ruthie Jordan, and Norma Odell. Friend of many, too numerous to mention. A service of Thanksgiving will be held on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, at Belmont Methodist Church, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 10 a.m. The cortege will then proceed to Westbury Cemetery for the interment. The family invites you to the live streaming via lyndhurstfuneralhome.com www.events/Thelma-Dewsbury. Simeon Adolphus Franklin, late of Palm Spring, Fortescue, St. Philip, and formerly of Chapel Land, St. Philip and the UK, entered peacefully into rest on May 26, 2023, at the age of 84. Son of the late Avis and Clifford Franklin, beloved brother of Lolita, retired worker of the Child Care Board, and Errol Franklin, retired worker of the BWA, Patsy and Urban Luke, and the late James St. Clair, Vincent, Carlton, Sylvia, Millicent, Leomi Franklin, and Myrtle Grosvenor. Uncle of Veronica, Carson, Simon, Anthony, Whitfield, Hyacinth, Wilfred, Rosalind, Reginald, Antonia, Shirley, Emerson, Lionel, Sylvia, Cheryl Franklin Yard, Verona Moore, Alan Thorpe, and many others. Great uncle of Dwayne of Oceans 2 Hotel, Katrina, Tyrone, Samorio Franklin, Simona Franklin Jarvis, Rosemary Moore, Leanda Gay, Shanna Motley, Jason Gibson, Akil Miller, and many others. Friend of Donna Eiffel Franklin, Kirk Clark, Cindy Bradshaw, Hilford Murrell, attorney at law, and many others, including those in the UK. Relative of the Franklin, Ford, Moore, Luke, and Thorpe families. A service of celebration and thanksgiving will be held on Friday, June 23, 2023, at the St. Philip Parish Church, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 3 p.m., followed by the interment. The family invites you to the live streaming of the service via lyndhurstfuneralhome.com/events Simeon-Franklin. Kevin E. Hoyt, also known as Kevy, of Mango Lane, Speightstown, St. Peter, entered peacefully into rest at age 55, employee of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Electoral Boundaries. Son of Esther Hoyt and the late Dudley Hoyt, father of Shaniqua and Kiara Hoyt, grandfather of Nyakim Bab, brother of Cosmo, Clement Walker, and Marcia Walker Blenman, Sharon and Deidre Hoyt, nephew of Jeanette, Erla, Marion and Vincent Hoyt, Matrid and Grace Griffith, and the late Ronald Hoyt, uncle of Leanna Griffith, Janelle Johnson, Christopher Welsh, Shania Guerrero, Shamar Hoyt, Kelsey and Ryan Scott Walker, great uncle of Jakaya Spencer, Ania, Alexander Stevens, Nolan and Logan Guerrero, cousin of Melissa Marshall Hoyt, Uniqua Griffith, Arlene Beckles, Dr. Elliot Douglin, Pearson, Ricky and the late Donna Douglin, brother-in-law of Diana Armstrong Walker and Cleopatra Marshall Walker, godfather of Nia Griffith, Mariska Adams, and many others, friend of Trevor Walters, Ian Griffith, Glenroy McLean, Patrick Sandiford, Theodore Fraser, Gregory Adams, Lilith Walker, Carol, and many others. The funeral of the late Kevin E. Hoyt leaves Earl's Funeral Home, Half Moon Fort, St. Lucie, on Saturday, June 24, 2023, for the Chapel of Mount Pleasant Memorial Gardens, Pleasant Hall, St. Peter, where relatives and friends are asked to meet for the service of Thanksgiving at 10 a.m. The funeral will then proceed to Casuarina Lawns, Mount Pleasant Memorial Gardens, for the interment. Live streaming of the funeral may be viewed via watch.earlsfuneralhome.com/Kevin Hoyt. The death is announced of the late Esther Maylene John, née Hines, age 69, of Green Park Lane, St. Michael, daughter of the late Carlotta Hines and Sidney Lewis, mother of Kay Hines, Margaret Towler, June Austin, Maria Hines, and the late Janice Hines, sister of the late Neville Hines, grandmother of Ashida Joseph Thorne, Hakeem and Marquez Towler, Zachariah and Zekesi Wood, Sarah and Jude Austin, great-grandmother of Jasmine Marie Joseph Thorne, stepmother of Leroy McAllister, aunt of Diana Brathwaite and Phyllis Bino, mother-in-law of Nicholas Wood, O'Neill Austin and Aubrey Towler, friend of Kim Marshall, Pamela and Trevor Haynes, Sandra Best, Marcia Holder, Tony Marshall, Phyllis Lovell, Mervyn Fletcher, and Kathy Ann Pinder, relative of the Hines, Austin, Bino, Brathwaite, and Wood families. The funeral of the late Esther Maylene John, née Hines, leaves Keith Jones Funeral Home on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, for the Church of God, Chapman Street, St. Michael, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 1:30 p.m. for a service of thanksgiving. The cortege will then proceed to Westbury Cemetery for the interment. Live streaming of the funeral service and interment may be viewed at keithjonesfunerals.live/Esther John. Condolences may be sent to Keith Jones Funerals at caribsurf.com. Gwendolyn Wilhelmina Jordan, aged 80 years, affectionately known as Aggie, late of Rock Hall, St. Andrew, well-known hawker in Speightstown, avid member of the Barbados Labour Party, faithful member of the Mothers' Union and Church Army at St. Peter's Parish Church, daughter of the late Edwardine Eiffel, née Drakes, and Fitzgerald Kelman, mother of June George of the UK, Everton Drakes, Angela Jordan, Joan Williams, Cecil Jordan, Heather Brown, Judah Brown, and Sylvia and Darren Brown, and the late Suzette Jordan. Grandmother of Ebony George, Melissa Maynard, Tricia Hines, Shay Williams, Chantal Sobers, Shakira Drakes, and many others. Sister of Fitzgerald and Anthony Drakes, McDonald Kelman, Sandra, Victor, Roy, and Rosalind Goodman, Sylvia Clark, and Wendy Joseph. Mother-in-law of 4, cousin of many. Relative of the Cumberbatch, Drakes, Medford, Maynard, Kelman, Straker, and Vaughan families. Friend of Eula O'Neill and many others. The funeral of Gwendolyn Wilhelmina Jordan leaves St. John Funeral Home, Half Moon Fort, St. Lucie, on Saturday, June 24th, 2023, for the chapel at Mount Pleasant Memorial Gardens, Pleasant Hall, St. Peter, where relatives and friends are asked to meet at 1:30 p.m. for the service of Thanksgiving, followed by the interment in Mount View Gardens. Please join via live stream for the service and interment at restinpeace.live/Gwendolyn Jordan. Fond remembrances and condolences to the family may be directed to info@stjohnfuneralhome.com. Zareen Shanna McFarlane of Yearwood Road, Mount Standfast, St. James, and formerly of St. Lucia, entered peacefully into rest at age 38, employee of Sherman and Jesse Davis of the USA. Sunrise, July 2nd, 1984. Sunset, June 3rd, 2023. Daughter of Veronica Nurse and Smith Gonzalez. Mother of Ronaldo Hines and Sapphire Knight. Great-granddaughter of Mayling Gonzalez. Stepdaughter of Walter Nurse. Sister of Khalil McFarlane and Aaron Joseph. Special friend of Rudolph Hines and Tyson Simpson. Relative of the St. Agnes, Nurse, Hines, and Gonzalez families. Special thanks to you, Amanda Leon, nurse of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The funeral of the late Zareen Shanna McFarlane leaves Earl's Funeral Home, Half Moon Fort, St. Lucie, on Monday, June 19, 2023, for St. Francis of Assisi Roman Catholic Church, Mount Standfast, St. James, where relatives and friends are asked to meet for the service of Thanksgiving at 2 p.m. The funeral will then proceed to St. James Cemetery for the interment. Live streaming of the funeral may be viewed via watch.earlsfuneralhome.com/Zareen McFarlane. Adrian Sinclair Williams, BSc, aged 34, better known as Jack, of Six Men's Development, St. Peter, IT Systems Analyst at Sagicor Inc., son of Anderson Williams, Director of Levi Funeral Services, and Pamela Williams, Fruit and Vegetable Vendor, Cheapside Market. Brother of Dave and Antonio Williams and Tellison Monerville of St. Lucia. Grandson of the late Eileen Williams and Delta Sunsun of St. Lucia. Cousin of Cara and Kelly Beckles, Angela, Beulah, Amar, Maxine, Dee, and many others. Relative of the Sunsun, Beckles, Roach, Bartholomew, Rudder, Brown, and Williams families. Special friend of Christopher, Christina, Barry, Chantal, Faith, Jonas, Johannes, Jalish, Kimar, Rashad, Stefan, and Terrell. The funeral of the late Adrian Sinclair Williams leaves the Tranquility Chapel of Two Sons Funeral Home on Saturday, June 24, 2023, for the Emmanuel Baptist Church, President Kennedy Drive, St. Michael, where relatives and friends are asked to meet for a homegoing service at 10 a.m. Tributes will begin at 9 a.m. The cortege will then proceed to Mount View Gardens, Mount Pleasant Memorial Gardens, St. Peter. Live streaming of the service may be found at KD34 on YouTube. Joan Diana Morita Worrell of Ashton Hall, St. Peter, entered peacefully into eternal rest on Tuesday, June 6, 2023, at the age of 76. Faithful member of Mile and a Quarter Seventh-day Adventist Church and retired ancillary worker of the Alexandra Secondary School. Wife of the late Carmichael Worrell. Daughter of the late Dudley and Mildred Rudder. Loving mother of Roger Worrell. Sherilyn Welch Payne and Ardith Headley of Sagicor Life, Inc. Doting grandmother of Anya and Shanice Worrell. Roche Welch Payne. Ajani and the late Adrian O'Mara Headley. Great-grandmother of Aaron Brathwaite. Sister of Althea, Mary Marshall, Monica Rudder, and the late Oliver and Trevor Rudder. Mother-in-law of Roger Welch Payne and Adrian Headley. Sister-in-law of Denzel Worrell. Adoptive mother of Sharon Payne, Katrina Nichols, and Shira Sidney. Relative of the Ramsey, Rudder and Worrell families. The funeral of the late Joan Diana Morita Worrell leaves Earl's Funeral Home on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, for Mile and a Quarter Seventh-day Adventist Church, Hopeland, St. Peter, where relatives and friends are asked to meet for the service of Thanksgiving at 2 p.m. Tributes will commence at 1:30 p.m. The funeral will then proceed to Casuarina Lawns, Mount Pleasant Memorial, for the interment. Live streaming of the funeral may be viewed via watch.earlsfuneralhome.com/Joan Worrell. He is gone. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back, or you can open your eyes and see all he's left. Your heart can be empty because you cannot see him, or you can be full of love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live in yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he'd want, smile, open your eyes, live, and go on. Helping children to understand the passing of a loved one? Here's some key points. Be honest. Be straightforward. Use age-appropriate words. Encourage questions. And most of all, offer comfort. To learn more, contact the bereavement team at Earls FH Barbados or call 439-8881.
This week, we remember
Mavis Elaine Chase, Rhonda Maureen Clark, née Gooden, Clarence Whitfield Eastmond, Valerie Alicia Ford, Susan Shirlene Hinkson, Dwayne M. Mitchell, George Ardelonda Phillips, Romario Baggio Roach, Estelita Naomi Samuel, Wendy Victoria Scott. One of the greatest comforts in times of sorrow is the expression of sympathy conveyed in many ways. The team at In Loving Memory thanks you on behalf of the families for your expressions of sympathy at this time.